Now, never mind the fact that I actually forgot to actually make sure that I was recording the audio for this. So, don't mind the casual slaughter of a bunch of lawmen as I rob a train. But also, I just, I was just completely asleep when I was doing this, so whatever. Now, it's been a decent while since I've actually posted anything. I mean, it might have only been last month that I recorded my last thing, or at least posted my last full video. But I should say that I did actually have some things ready, like actually recorded, but it didn't feel coherent enough, and frankly, I was in a sort of block in terms of uploading stuff, editing, all that sort of stuff. So I kind of apologize if you were actually into that, but at the same time, I mean, weren't that many people that would engage actively in the comments, so it's kind of like that extra thing that I needed to be like, okay, maybe it's fine for me to continue this. Um, but it's been a minute again, so I might as well just update on a few things. College just started around last week. For me, it didn't really start until Wednesday because I have Tuesdays off. Um, and unless I'm doing D&D or I'm lucky enough to have some decent hours at work, uh, just generally chilling, playing games, maybe catching up on assignments if I get my shit together. But yeah, that's kind of the gist. It's not really much going on, but I should probably tell you guys about my what classes that I'm taking. I'm taking animation and game fundamentals so far, and from the lecture that I had about 2 days ago, I'm really liking it so far. I still have to get to the labs along with my classmates, but it's still something that I am getting prepared for as we progress. And just again from the lecture, because we were talking about the process and why animation is what it is and why we choose animation over live action per se. Yeah, it's stuff that you genuinely like if you're in A-Tech, and that's what I appreciate. Um, but that kind of leads to a question that people are going to be asking immediately after high school, if not beforehand. Is college really for me? To answer that, you need to answer these questions. Do you have a plan for going to college? Do you have a plan when you're in college? Do you know how you're going to handle your tuition? Do I have a job able to have a solid income for the most part? Do I have transportation there? Do I have the option to live in a dorm? You know, it's all these things as well as budgeting. Budgeting is by far the most critical thing that you need to worry about when you're in college because you, you're mostly focusing on tuition when you're getting started. You're not focusing on the textbooks necessarily, even though it blatantly tells you that for estimated costs and whatnot. Like me, I started this week with $1,900 around there, and that would have been just enough for me to do tuition. But I might as well wait for my next check to get my second tuition payment done. I got the first payment done about a week ago, and then it's a 1900 one, and then I have until April to get another payment. That's another thing. Payment plans are almost certainly the way to go if you don't have the immediate amount ready and if you don't have some spread for yourself. Keep in mind, well, depending on how you run things, if you're running them similarly to how I do, you're going to want to have at least $200 with you until your next paycheck. That's generally how you do that. So 200, and then save the surplus for your tuition, especially if you're living with somebody else or your parents per se, just like I am. Don't shame people for that, by the way. It's just budgeting to the best of their abilities. But some people are fortunate enough to have dorms, and that's fine as well. It's also fine to get into loans as long as you're ready to pay that off by the end of it, because you don't want to get in debt for the rest of your life. But let me go back to the classes because I totally skipped that. There's only 4 other ones. I have technoculture, which is just talking about the aspects of technology and socialness and shit. Then I have project management, which is exactly as it sounds, you know, doing teamwork with other people, getting something done. Then I have national government, which I'm embarrassed to take again because I actually had AP government in my high school, but I didn't pass the AP exam, so that was kind of a shot in the ass. And then I have visual communication, which is, you know, displaying messages or conveying a message through pictures and such. Pretty basic stuff. But it was really nice going back to college because there's, apart from certain classes, and they have a relatively small ratio in the big scheme, in the large scheme of things, there's barely any filler. You're actively going to be engaged, and the classes that you might think aren't engaging, you choose to have them. You know, you take some good with the bad, and who knows, maybe that class is going to be just as engaging, if not more so, for some, like national government. Government is something that is really terrible to bring in the table, but there's a lot of discussion to be had about it, and that's what I like about government. But getting back to the aspects of, is college for me, you know, it's fine if you're indecisive towards your senior year. It's even indecisive even if you haven't taken college and you're past that, like way past that. Like one of the teacher assistants that I have discussion for, she decided to study here while her husband was doing some stuff here in Richardson. So it's never really too late to just pick up your college degree if you want. But by far the biggest thing that everybody's going to struggle for, and you're a liar if you say you're not going to struggle with this, it's dedication. It takes a lot of time and a lot of focus in order to get a few assignments done, especially if you're doing projects. Like, I had to do a project for my Design 1 class and my Digital Arts and Design Foundations class every week. One project every week out of each class, which would take a good amount of time away. And especially if you're somebody like me that prefers to work 30-hour weeks or 40-hour weeks, depending on how things go, you're going to be struggling a decent amount with managing your time and planning things ahead. That's inevitable. But some things could work in your favor even if they don't look like it. Like right now, as I'm reporting, I'm doing this on a Thursday, so I have visual communications at 5:30, but I have technoculture at 8:30 in the morning. 8:30 in the morning. That means if I want to save on gas, it's going to be staying here for the entire day up until pretty much when it's already dusk. And on the surface it's really bad, but the benefits are I'm in college, so I potentially have time with my friends. My friends don't really have that many classes at all on Thursday. If they do, maybe it's just like one. But there's opportunity to be with your friends. That and I don't know if you're like me in the sense that school just has a way of making you engaged with assignments just by being there. It's really weird, but I feel like it holds true for at least some people, but I'm not exactly sure. And then another thing, which really is just going back to planning in general, it's planning your schedule. Like, I had help in the first semester to plan for this next one because, you know, it's just a bunch of guiding, both from the teacher there in first year seminar and also from other students that have been here for longer than you have. So it's a little difficult to do things on your own, but at the same time, you know, it's getting into the idea of you're becoming an adult. You have to pay for your own things. You have to learn certain things by yourself most of the time. So it's just another barrier that you can overcome if you put the effort to do it. Again, it's all about effort at the end of the day. And another thing which I've briefly touched, I don't understand why this is choppy, but never mind. The other thing has to do with managing your time at work, because there are immediate upsides and there are long-term downsides. So immediate upsides, you're working up your paycheck, you're getting secured for the next week, or the next check rather. But the downside is that you're going to lose a lot of focus in the long term because you're slowly going to get tired and you're just going to lose concentration in general, and it's going to be a lot more difficult to focus on something if you overwork yourself, get yourself fatigued, and just generally neglect yourself. So make sure that you're getting enough sleep, you're not tiring yourself out too much, and that you're actually eating, because you don't want to be like me who has like 1 or 2 meals a day and that's it. But even so, just find the balance between managing your time for work and taking care of yourself. Typically I like to run 30-hour weeks because I find that to be the safest, and I still have a decent amount for myself in terms of getting food because I just main Firehouse pretty much every day that I'm here now. I would main Starbucks as well, but I'm not working the nights that I go to class, or I'm not working nights in the days that I go to class. So yeah, that's also where the 200 comes in from earlier. I prefer to have $120 for gasoline because gasoline is pretty necessary. I commute, which is about 40 minutes away from my house in a single trip, so a round trip is going to be much longer. Not only that, but you also have to take into account certain elements like, is it going to rain? Is it going to ice? Is there going to be a fucking accident down to 635? Even though that shouldn't really be a question because it's bound to happen. Is there going to be some sort of slowdown? You know, it's all these things that you have to take into account regardless, and that's also leads to another thing. If you're commuting, you have to prepare way ahead of time, both in terms of what route am I going to take, how long am I going to get there, and will I have parking by the end of it? Because parking can be really difficult to find on campus, especially if you're going here in the middle of the day. Like, the usual lot that I go to is packed as hell by the time midday hits, by the time 12 p.m. hits. And it's really, really empty by the time 7 o'clock hits, or 8 o'clock, which is typically when the earliest classes start. So you're going to have to take that into account. Not just that, but also where you're going to park. Well, again, this can depend on how packed it is, but even small things can be can lead to decent enough impact. Like, if I'm late, I have to park furthest away from my classes. If I'm not, and I get here as early as possible, then I'm going to have a decent amount of distance to cover, like a relatively short amount. And one other thing which I'm going to touch on briefly because I think I'm nearing the end of this. If you're going to go anywhere, just bring wheels. Like, just generally on campus, there's people that bring bikes, there's people that bring scooters, skateboards. I myself have a skateboard so that I can cruise around. And also my friends do ever since October. But if you're going to have really compact classes and you're going to have only 10 to 15 minute breaks between classes, you're going to want to get there as quickly as possible, especially if you're really new and don't know where to go exactly. So just having another set of smaller wheels next to you is going to help a lot with going from A to B, and also allows time for mistakes. So yeah, that's kind of it. Kind of a bit of an update, but more so just talking about what lies ahead and maybe prepare you for college if you're thinking about it, or for some reason are younger than I am and are ready to go. So yeah, that's about it. I'll see everybody around.